So how exactly you achieve pronatalism, um, other than doing what the anti-abortion movement has done in defining personhood, which is essentially to criminalize things in new ways, to expand the scope of people who are punished, to pass redundant criminal laws, like Texas now has a big mega bill that will introduce yet more penalties for people who mail or possess or manufacture abortion pills. That's been the way we've been doing this. And whether that changes, I think, it seems unlikely in the near term.
In fact, when the New Yorker was writing about your book, it referred to boundless tactical resourcefulness of the legal movement, of the personhood movement, because it would latch on to one argument, and if that one was knocked down, then it would find another one, like the 14th Amendment. And it just seemed to be morphing in how it approached the argument to tailor it to the audience and to the legal opportunities.
Yeah, I think it's both I think one of the things that comes across when you study this history is how um, innovative and effective abortion opponents have been, but also I think how fetal personhood has kind of had this hold on conservatives' imaginations for a long time. Because one of the things I kept being asked when writing the book was, isn't this just like a ploy, right? Don't these people sit in rooms and twirl their mustaches and say this is actually about controlling women? And the short answer to that is no, right? That people may have other motives in their desire to criminalize abortion, but that they talk about fetal rights when they're with one another in strategy sessions and emails. So for some reason, this idea that the real victim of discrimination was not pregnant women who were being denied emergency care, and was not people of color, and wasn't any of the people you would ordinarily think of. That was really compelling to people. And it was also vague enough, right? What it meant to say a fetus was a person was never fully fleshed out, right? It was never clear how you would enforce that, how you would treat pregnant people as a result of that, who would be punished if that was true, if anybody needed to be punished. So it also ended up being sort of a canvas onto which people could project all kinds of other ideas. So it was both strategic ingenuity, and it was also, I think, a function of how personhood became kind of a mirror of how a lot of conservatives thought of a lot of other issues over the course of really almost a half century.
And there was a sense of, you referred to the punitiveness against women, which has always been the case when it comes to abortion and contraception, that you should pay the wages of your sin. Never mind that there's another sinner on the other side of the bed who's getting off without many of the consequences. But the idea that the women become, throughout this argument, different. They are victims of what you call big abortion, the way we refer to big pharma now, or the idea that they're these wicked creatures who don't love children, who care nothing for children. That too has changed over time as the personhood movement has found it useful.
Yeah, and it's under pressure now. So one of the things that's become a real, I think, sensitive point for abortion opponents and a point of division since Roe was overturned is whether personhood requires you to punish women because they're sinners or just because they've taken the rights of a fetal person. And the movement's divided about that. There's a wing of the movement that identifies as abolitionist, that argues essentially if in fact fetuses are rights holding people, you have to punish women. And in fact, you have to punish women for murder, right? That anything less than that, it contradicts the principle of fetal personhood. And there are other people in the movement, most of the leaders of the larger groups, who think that that's pragmatically just political suicide, who argue instead that ultimately, at least at the moment, women are the second victims of abortion because the abortion industry is sophisticated enough to hoodwink them and can such that they don't know what they're doing. This is an inherently unstable position, of course, right? Because in theory, there will come a time when people know what they're doing, even if they don't know what they're doing now. And then it will be very difficult, I think, for the movement to justify why women shouldn't be punished. So that reckoning, if fetal person is recognized, I think is coming. There were lots of conversations I had both on and off the record with people about the contemporary debates about personhood that reinforce that that's really the case.
Hi, I'm Pat Morrison, one of the hosts of America at a Crossroads. If you like this video, don't just watch. head over to our website where you can subscribe for early access to new programs, see our upcoming schedules, and connect directly with our guests in our weekly live streams. Thank you for watching.
What is it that so invests people in being part of this movement? Obviously, there's a religious factor, but what else is afoot? Because we're hearing a lot now about, oh, America has such a low birth rate, we're not going to be able to sustain ourselves as a nation. There are lots of motives going on in this movement, I would think.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think there were people who were attracted to the movement for religious reasons. Initially, obviously Catholics, but they're now, I think now the movement is primarily associated with conservative Protestantism. Their views about gender, their views about race, right? I mean, for a movement that's making claims about being a civil rights movement, you have to have, I think, by definition, views about what civil rights mean in other contexts. The relationship between the anti-abortion movement and pronatalism is also really interesting because the anti-abortion movement is a coalition with a bunch of folks who don't necessarily get along, and so is the what's turning into the pronatalist movement. So, crudely speaking, right, you have people who are pronatalist because they're opposed to abortion. So, in other words, pronatalism may be um, important because it means fewer people are having abortions and more people are having babies. There are people who are pronatalist because they are nativist and they want to have jobs and certain functions satisfied without people being allowed to cross our borders. There are kind of tech bro pronatalists who have their own agenda and wanting people to have more children. And so I think exactly how that lines up with the anti-abortion movement's agenda is really complicated. It has been historically and it is now. I think you see that playing out in part because a lot of the kind of what would nominally be considered pro-family anti-abortion leaders want to see the Trump administration do more to kind of incentivize people to have children, for example, by rolling out paid family leave, which is not going to happen in the era of DOJ, right? We're going to see fewer things paid for, and for the most part, with obvious exceptions, and not more things paid for. So how exactly you achieve pronatalism, other than doing what the anti-abortion movement has done in defining personhood, which is essentially to criminalize things in new ways, to expand the scope of people who are punished, to pass redundant criminal laws, like Texas now has a big mega bill that will introduce yet more penalties for people who mail or possess or manufacture abortion pills. That's been the way we've been doing this. And whether that changes, I think, it seems unlikely in the near term.
See on the screen our upcoming programs and a variety of topics and timely ones as well. We hope you will join us for those topics as well and support in any way you can what it is that we do here, the mission of JUDJ's programs. Thank you very much. I'm Pat Morrison. Appreciate you watching and listening this evening.